The gavel struck once, sharp and final, and the courtroom went silent. Marcus Hayes stood still, his shoulders heavy but unbroken, while across the aisle Claire leaned back in her chair like she was settling into first class. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, and she laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not even a polite one. It was the laugh of someone who believed she had just won everything. The judge's voice droned on, listing off the houses, the bank accounts, the business shares, all of it awarded to Claire. What Marcus was left with sounded more like an insult than a consolation, a run-down property by the river that most people had already forgotten existed. Someone in the back of the courtroom muttered, "That place, it's falling apart." Another voice answered, "Serves him right." The words stung, but Marcus didn't flinch. At his side, his 10-year-old daughter clutched his hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. She kept her chin tucked down, as if hiding from the cameras flashing across the room. He squeezed her fingers back, steady, telling her without words, "I'm here. We'll survive this." When the judge dismissed the court, Claire rose slowly, smoothing her designer dress. She didn't look at Marcus, not directly. She just offered a little smile, quick and sharp, before walking out with her lawyer at her side. To her, this was the end of the story. To Marcus, it was only the beginning. As he led his daughter through the crowded hallway, a reporter called out above the chatter, "Mr. Hayes, do you feel humiliated, losing everything like this?" The cameras turned in his direction, waiting to catch him stumble. Marcus stopped for half a second, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Then he straightened his tie, met the eyes of the reporter, and kept walking. But inside, one thought burned steady, a truth no one else in that room knew. Claire might think she stripped him bare, but she had overlooked the one thing that mattered most. The winter air slapped them as soon as they stepped outside. Marcus pulled his coat tighter around his daughter's shoulders, even though the coat was thin and worn at the seams. She pressed into him, her small frame trembling not just from the cold, but from the weight of what she had just seen. They walked past the reporters clustered on the courthouse steps, their voices sharp and greedy, each one throwing questions like stones. How does it feel to lose everything? Do you regret trusting her? Cameras flashed, and Marcus shielded his daughter's face with his arm, guiding her down the stairs like a man carrying something fragile through a storm. At the curb, the town car that used to wait for him was gone. No driver, no tinted windows, just the hiss of buses and the glare of traffic lights. He lifted a hand and a city bus groaned to a stop. They climbed aboard, the smell of diesel and damp coats filling the air. His daughter slid into a hard plastic seat, hugging her backpack to her chest. Marcus sat beside her, staring straight ahead as the bus jolted forward. Whispers travelled down the aisle. A couple of passengers recognised him, once the man in glossy magazines, now sitting quietly with his little girl. One voice carried just enough for him to hear. "That's Marcus Hayes, used to own half the tech park." Another added, almost pitying, "Now look at him." His daughter turned her face toward the window, pretending not to hear. But Marcus felt her hands slip into his, fingers trembling. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze, steady and warm, as if to anchor her. "It's just noise," he murmured. "People talk. We'll be fine." The bus rattled through the city streets, passing glowing storefronts and restaurants where people laughed over dinners Marcus once could have afforded without thinking. He swallowed the sting of it, focusing instead on the steady rhythm of the road. When they finally reached the stop near the river, he helped his daughter down. The wind off the water was sharp, carrying the smell of rust and salt. Ahead of them stood the house the court had left him, weather-beaten, leaning against the riverbank like it had been forgotten by time. His daughter tugged his sleeve. "Dad, do we really have to stay here?" Her voice was small, uncertain. Marcus rested a hand on her shoulder, his eyes fixed on the broken shutters and sagging porch. He bent down to meet her gaze, his tone calm but unshakable. "We'll make it ours, just wait and see." And as they stepped through the creaking gate, a figure across the street paused, watching them disappear inside, a face Marcus didn't notice, but one that wouldn't stay hidden for long. The front gate groaned when Marcus pushed it open, the metal hinges stiff from years of neglect. The path leading to the porch was cracked and uneven, weeds pushing through the stones as if the house itself had given up fighting. The siding was faded, the shutters crooked, and one window had been patched with cardboard. His daughter hesitated on the sidewalk, her breath puffing little clouds in the cold. "It looks scary," she whispered, clutching the strap of her backpack. Marcus forced a small smile, the kind a father gives when he doesn't have the luxury of telling the truth. "It's not scary," he said softly. "It just needs someone to care about it again." Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and dust. Floorboards creaked with every step, and a draft slipped through cracks around the windows. The wallpaper had peeled in strips, exposing plaster the colour of old bones. His daughter wrinkled her nose and pulled her sweater tighter around her. Marcus set her bag down in what had once been a living room. He looked at the broken ceiling fan, the stains on the carpet, and the fireplace filled with ashes from someone else's life. He felt the weight of it all pressed down on him. The humiliation, the fear, the responsibility of being the only steady thing left in his daughter's world. But then she tugged at his sleeve, holding up a small photograph she'd pulled from her backpack. It was of her mother, smiling in better days. She placed it on the dusty mantel, her small voice steady. "Now it feels like home." Marcus blinked hard, his throat tight, and for a moment the house didn't feel so empty. Later, when he went to put away a box in a back closet, a stack of old folders slid from a shelf and scattered across the floor. One of them cracked open, and inside Marcus saw a familiar document, his name printed across the top, bold and official. He froze, staring at the old patent papers he had almost forgotten existed. He gathered them up quickly, his heartbeat loud in the silence. His daughter called from the other room, asking if the lights still worked. "They will," he called back, slipping the folder under his arm. But inside, he knew this house was hiding more than just memories. Marcus sat at the kitchen table that night, the overhead light flickering like it wasn't sure it wanted to stay on. The folder lay open in front of him, its papers yellowed at the edges but still crisp with official stamps and signatures. He ran his hand over the title, his name beside a design he had once poured late nights and quiet mornings into, a small but promising innovation in clean energy. He remembered the day he filed it. Claire had brushed past the idea, laughing it off as another one of his little projects that would never make money. At the time, he hadn't fought her on it. He just tucked the papers away, knowing someday the world might be ready for what she couldn't see. Now, with everything stripped from him, this forgotten patent looked different. It wasn't just a set of blueprints. It was leverage, it was possibility, maybe even a way back. His daughter padded into the kitchen in her socks, rubbing her eyes. "Dad, can we keep the lights on all night? It feels safer." Marcus closed the folder quickly and gave her a soft smile. "Of course," he said. He walked her back to the bedroom, tucking her beneath the blankets that still smelled faintly of cardboard boxes. As he turned off the hallway light, she whispered, "We'll be okay, right?" He hesitated, then pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Yes," he murmured. But when he closed her door, he leaned against the wall for a long moment, staring at the folder still sitting on the kitchen table. The next morning, he carried it under his arm to the office of an old acquaintance, a lawyer who had once handled some of his early contracts. The reception area was plain, the smell of stale coffee hanging in the air. When the lawyer, a grey-haired man named Douglas, flipped through the papers, his eyebrows rose. "Marcus," Douglas said, lowering his voice, "do you realise what you're holding? Companies are already circling this field. If you play this right, you might have more than just a roof over your head." Marcus sat back, his hands folded tightly together. "I don't want to play it wrong," he said quietly. Douglas studied him for a long moment, then slid the folder back across the desk. "Then be patient. Don't sell it cheap. The right offer will come." As Marcus left the office, the weight of the folder pressed against his chest like both a burden and a lifeline. He stepped out into the cold air, his breath visible, his thoughts tangled. And across the street, someone lowered a camera, capturing the moment he walked out. Not Claire this time, but a woman with a press badge clipped to her coat. The furnace coughed twice before giving up that morning, leaving the old house colder than the air outside. Marcus slipped a second sweater over his shirt, then roused his daughter for school. She shivered as she pulled on her backpack, her breath rising like smoke in the dim kitchen. "I'll fix it," Marcus said, though he wasn't sure how. He had too many bills already stacked on the counter. Gas, electric, even the notice for overdue property taxes. Each envelope felt heavier than the last. After dropping his daughter off at school, he walked 3 blocks to a local garage. It wasn't glamorous work, changing oil, checking brakes, sweeping up grease, but it was cash, and cash kept the lights on. By noon, his hands were black with oil, his back stiff from crouching under hoods. The radio in the corner played an upbeat song that didn't match the weight pressing on his chest. During lunch, Marcus sat outside on the curb, unwrapping a sandwich from wax paper. The bread was thin, the cheese hardly melted, but he ate slowly, grateful for it. A man passing by paused, squinting. "Aren't you Marcus Hayes? Used to run Hayes Innovations?" Marcus wiped his hands on a rag, nodding once. The man gave a low whistle. "Man, how the mighty fall!" He shook his head and walked on. Marcus stared at the sandwich a long time before finishing the last bite. When school ended, his daughter waited for him at the library down the street. She sat cross-legged on the carpet between bookshelves, her homework spread out on the floor. When Marcus stepped inside, she looked up with a tired smile. "They had story hour today," she said. "It was nice." He sat beside her, careful not to smudge the library floor with oil from his boots. "Good," he said softly. She leaned against him, small and warm, and in that moment the noise of the world faded. That night, after she was asleep, Marcus sorted through his bills again. He pulled the folder with the patent from under the stack and set it in front of him. The papers seemed to glow in the lamplight, a reminder that this wasn't all there was, that survival wasn't the end goal. He rubbed his eyes, exhausted, when a sound broke the silence. A soft knock at the door. Once, twice. He froze, glancing toward the hallway where his daughter slept. When he opened the door, no one stood there. Only an envelope on the porch, the name Marcus Hayes scrawled across it in careful handwriting. Downtown, the ballroom lights shimmered across crystal glasses and polished marble floors. Claire moved through the crowd in a sequined dress, the kind that caught every flash of a camera. She laughed too loudly at someone's joke, tilting her glass of champagne just enough for the photographer nearby to capture it. On the surface, she looked untouchable, the picture of a woman who had won. Yet behind the scenes, cracks were spreading. Her phone buzzed relentlessly in her clutch. Each message came from her attorney, short and urgent. Loan payment overdue, vendor demanding settlement, bank requesting collateral. She ignored them, smiling at an investor's wife as if the world was still hers. But her hand trembled slightly when she raised her drink. Later that evening, she slipped into the ladies' room, locking herself inside one of the stalls. She sat down, the sequined dress pooling around her, and pressed the phone to her ear. Her lawyer's voice was low but firm. "Claire, this can't go on. Hayes Innovations is bleeding cash. You've mortgaged 2 properties already. Creditors are circling." She bit back her irritation. "Handle it, that's what I pay you for." There was a pause. "Even money has limits, Claire. You're not Marcus. You don't know how to keep a company alive when the numbers turn red." Her breath caught, sharp and quick. She ended the call without answering, staring at her reflection in the mirror. For a moment she saw not the glittering queen of the night, but a woman holding together a facade with threads that were already fraying. When she returned to the ballroom, the music seemed louder, the lights harsher. She smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Near the bar, a woman with a press badge clipped to her blazer scribbled notes in a small pad. Sarah, a journalist known for chasing stories others overlooked, studied Claire carefully. She didn't see a queen, she saw a headline waiting to be written. And as Claire lifted her glass once more, Sarah whispered to herself, "Something about this doesn't add up." The envelope from the porch sat on the kitchen table all morning. Marcus waited until his daughter left for school before tearing it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, crisp and unsigned, with a typed message. "We've reviewed your patent. Initial offer $200,000. Reply if interested." $200,000. The number seemed to glow on the page. His heart raced. He thought of the furnace that didn't work, the stack of bills waiting on the counter, the way his daughter shivered at night under layers of blankets. With that money, he could make everything easier in an instant. But his lawyer's voice echoed in his head. Don't sell it cheap. Be patient. At the garage, he worked through the day with the offer burning in his pocket. Oil stains spread across his shirt, and the smell of gasoline clung to his hands. During lunch break, he sat outside again, watching cars roll by. He imagined what 200,000 could buy. A working furnace, a reliable car, maybe even a proper home for his daughter. When she came running out of school later, her hair flying in the wind, she hugged him tight and whispered, "I told a friend today that we're going to be okay. I hope that's true, Dad." Marcus's throat tightened. He wanted to promise her more than hope. He wanted to give her proof. That night, he placed the letter back into the envelope and set it on the table. He stared at it for a long time, his jaw tight, his hands restless. Then, slowly, he pushed it aside and pulled the patent folder back toward him. "We don't trade away the future," he whispered to himself. Still, as the house groaned in the winter wind, he couldn't shake the fear that maybe he'd just thrown away the only lifeline he'd ever get. And across town, Sarah the journalist flipped through her notes about Claire's debt and about Marcus. Her eyes narrowed as she circled his name twice. The house was colder than usual that night. Marcus stacked blankets over his daughter, tucking them in carefully, but she still curled into a ball, her nose peeking out from under the quilt. He sat at the edge of the bed, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Dad," she whispered, her voice thin in the dark. "Yeah? Do you ever wish we still lived in the big house?" Marcus hesitated. He remembered the marble floors, the wide windows that caught the morning sun, the kitchen always stocked with food. But he also remembered how empty it had felt, even before Claire's laughter echoed in that courtroom. "I don't miss the house," he said softly. "I miss the feeling of home, and we can build that here, together." She shifted closer, resting her head on his arm. "I told myself today I wouldn't cry when the other kids made jokes. But I did. I tried to be brave, Dad. I really did." Marcus bent down and kissed her hair. Brave doesn't mean you never cry. It means you keep going even when it hurts. She nodded against him, and for the first time in weeks, her breathing grew steady, drifting towards sleep. Marcus stayed there long after, listening to the sound of her small breaths, the only steady rhythm in a life that had gone off beat. When he finally rose and stepped into the hallway, the cold air rushed in again. He pulled the patent folder from the shelf and held it tight against his chest, as if the papers themselves could warm him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about keeping a promise. To her, to himself. Downstairs, the front porch creaked. Marcus froze, heart pounding. He moved to the window and caught sight of a figure stepping back into the shadows. A woman with a camera strap slung over her shoulder, disappearing into the dark. Saturday morning, Marcus walked his daughter to the corner store. She wanted a small treat, something sweet to chase away the chill of another grey week. Inside, the shelves buzzed with neon wrappers and humming refrigerators. As Marcus handed a dollar bill to the cashier, he caught the low murmur of two women by the freezer section. "That's him," one whispered. "The guy who lost everything. His wife was smart enough to take it all." The other chuckled. "And now he's stuck with that falling apart shack. Poor kid." Their eyes flicked toward his daughter, who was clutching a pack of gum like it was treasure. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. He wanted to turn, to say something sharp. Instead, he laid his hand gently on his daughter's shoulder and guided her out the door. On the sidewalk, she kept her eyes down, her voice barely above a whisper. "They were talking about us." "I know," Marcus said softly. He crouched in front of her, meeting her eyes. "Listen to me. People will always talk. But they don't get to decide who we are. You do, I do." She blinked hard, and then a small, determined smile broke through. She unwrapped the gum and popped a piece into her mouth, chewing fast, as if it were a shield against the world. That night, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the patent folder again. His mind replayed the whispers in the store, the weight of those women's words pressing on his daughter like stones. He couldn't let this be their story forever. As the house settled into silence, his old phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with a number he didn't recognize. He hesitated, then answered. Then, a voice crackled through the line. "Mr. Hayes, I've seen your work. If you're serious about moving forward, let's meet. Tomorrow. Discretion is understood." Marcus tightened his grip on the phone, his pulse quickening. At last, a door was opening. Claire's heels clicked across the marble floor of the bank, her smile polished but tight. She handed over a stack of papers to the loan officer, who glanced through them with the detached patience of someone used to bad news. "Mrs. Hayes," he said finally, adjusting his glasses, "you've already leveraged 2 of your properties. Without fresh collateral, we can't extend another line of credit." Claire's smile didn't falter, but her fingers tightened around the edge of her handbag. "You know who I am. You know the company I run. This is temporary." The officer's tone remained calm, almost sympathetic. "Reputation doesn't cover debt, ma'am. Numbers do." Her jaw clenched, but she forced a light laugh as if the conversation were beneath her. She signed the papers, then left quickly, ignoring the curious glances from the lobby. That evening, she appeared at a charity gala, the cameras flashing as she stepped onto the red carpet. To everyone else, she was still the woman who had won the divorce, still the queen of the room. But Sarah, the journalist, was there too, watching from behind her notepad. Sarah noticed the small details others missed. The way Claire avoided the photographers who asked about Hayes' innovations, the way her laughter came a beat too late, the way she checked her phone every few minutes with a flicker of panic behind her eyes. Later, Sarah cornered one of Claire's vendors near the bar. The man shook his head, voice low. "Invoices unpaid. She's slipping." Sarah jotted the words down, her mind already weaving a story, not about the woman in the glittering dress, but about the storm no one else could see. Back at the gala table, Claire raised her glass high, smiling as though nothing was wrong. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, but her reflection in the glass caught her off guard. For just a moment, she saw not triumph, but fear, and while she drowned it in champagne, Sarah whispered to herself, "The fall always begins quietly." The diner smelled of burnt coffee and fried eggs, the kind of place where deals weren't supposed to happen. Marcus sat in a corner booth, his hands wrapped around a chipped mug, steam fogging the air between him and the man across the table. The man introduced himself as David, a young founder of a small energy startup. His suit was a little too big, his tie knotted crooked, but his eyes were sharp with ambition. He tapped a finger against Marcus's folder, the patent papers spread neatly across the formica. "This," David said, leaning forward, "could change everything. Not overnight, but in time. We don't have the cash to buy it outright, but I can offer you equity, a real stake in the company. You'd be more than just a name on paper. You'd be a partner." Marcus listened, silent, his thumb tracing the rim of his mug. Equity meant risk, it meant waiting, it meant bills piling up while he bet on a future that might never come. David seemed to sense the hesitation. "I know what 200,000 cash looks like right now. Easy way out. But if you believe in this work and if you believe in yourself, this could be worth far more." The waitress refilled Marcus's mug, her smile faint but kind. He caught his reflection in the dark surface of the coffee. Tired eyes, worn hands, but behind them something steady. He thought of his daughter, curled under blankets in that drafty house, telling her friends they'd be okay. He thought of the women in the store whispering, of Claire's laughter ringing in the courtroom. And then he thought of the long nights years ago when he first sketched the design, believing it mattered. Marcus slid the folder back across the table, his hand firm. "I don't want to sell it," he said quietly. "I'll take the stake. We build it together." David grinned, relief flashing across his face. He reached out, and their handshake sealed something more than a deal. It was the first real step forward. As Marcus stepped outside into the cold afternoon, his phone buzzed. A message from Douglas, the lawyer. "Word is Claire's company missed another payment. People are starting to notice." Marcus tucked the phone back into his coat, his breath fogging in the air. For the first time since the courthouse, he felt it. Not victory, not yet, but momentum. And across the street, Sarah lowered her camera after snapping a photo of him leaving the diner. She smiled to herself. Now that's a story worth telling. The smell of fresh paint clung to the air, sharp but hopeful. Marcus stood on a stepladder in the old living room, rolling a pale coat across the walls. The faded wallpaper was gone now, stripped back to something new. His daughter darted around with a smaller brush, her hair tied in a messy ponytail, streaks of white on her cheeks where she'd swiped her face without thinking. "Careful," Marcus said, glancing down at her. She giggled. "I'm an artist." The house, once heavy with silence, began to sound different. Music played low from a small radio on the windowsill, and every brushstroke seemed to fill the rooms with life again. Marcus patched holes in the floorboards, tightened loose hinges, even coaxed the old fireplace back into use. Slowly, the place began to feel less like a sentence and more like a home. One evening, he and his daughter shared dinner at the new table they had rescued from a thrift store. It wobbled on one leg, but he steadied it with a folded magazine. They ate fried chicken from a paper bucket, steam rising into the dim light. She licked her fingers and laughed, and for the first time in months, Marcus laughed too. "This feels normal," she said softly, glancing around the room. Marcus reached across the table, brushing a crumb from her chin. "Normal's not about where you live, it's about who you're with." Her eyes shone, and she leaned forward to hug him, chicken grease and all. Later that night, Marcus sat at his desk, no longer the dusty relic of the past, but a space he had carved out for the future. Papers were neatly stacked, plans sketched out, a laptop glowing faint blue against the wood. He pulled out the folder once more, running a hand across its edges like a man reminding himself of the road ahead. From outside, a camera clicked. Sarah, standing across the street in the shadows, captured the image of Marcus bent over his desk, his daughter's laughter drifting faintly from upstairs. She lowered her camera and whispered, "This isn't just a comeback story. It's bigger than that." The headlines started small at first, tucked into the business pages. Hayes Innovations misses filing deadline. Most people barely noticed. But in the weeks that followed, the stories grew louder, creeping onto the front page, whispered in boardrooms, traded like gossip in coffee shops. Claire tried to ignore it. She still posted glossy photos online, a champagne toast here, a designer outfit there. But the likes came slower and the comments changed tone. "Is everything okay? Heard the company's in trouble. Where's Marcus?" At her office, the truth couldn't be filtered. Vendors called daily, their voices sharp with frustration. Employees whispered in hallways, resumes quietly updated and printed. One afternoon, as Claire marched through the lobby in her heels, a group of interns fell silent mid-conversation. She caught the tail end of it anyway. "She doesn't even know what she's doing," one muttered, and the others looked away quickly. That night, rain hammered the glass of her penthouse windows. Claire sat at the kitchen island, papers spread before her, red ink slashing across numbers she could no longer bend to her will. Her hand shook as she signed yet another desperate loan, the pen leaving a smear where her signature faltered. The next morning, a reporter caught her outside the courthouse, umbrella snapping in the wind. Cameras flashed, voices overlapping. "Mrs. Hayes, is Hayes Innovations headed for bankruptcy? Is it true creditors are suing?" Claire pushed past them, her smile brittle. But the photos told a different story. Wet hair plastered against her face, makeup streaked, eyes wide with something close to fear. The image splashed across the evening news that same night. And while the world replayed her stumble, Sarah sat in her small newsroom office, typing quickly. She pinned a new headline to her draft. The empire she took may be crumbling, but someone else is quietly rising. Her cursor blinked over Marcus's name. The lobby of the city's tallest skyscraper buzzed with cameras and conversation. Reporters shuffled in, adjusting their equipment, while business leaders shook hands and whispered in corners. The press release had gone out a week earlier. A new investment firm, one built on clean energy and sustainable growth. At its head, a name many had written off, Marcus Hayes. He stood just behind the curtain, adjusting the knot of his tie. It wasn't new, the same tie he had worn in court months earlier, but tonight it looked different on him. His daughter smoothed the front of her dress nervously, her wide eyes sweeping the crowd. "Are you ready?" she whispered. Marcus bent slightly, his hand steady on her shoulder. "I've been ready for a long time." When the announcer called his name, the room hushed. Marcus walked to the podium, his daughter at his side. Flashbulbs lit up like fireworks, but this time he didn't flinch. He looked out at the sea of faces, some curious, some skeptical, some already eager to follow his lead, and began to speak. His voice was calm, even, carrying a weight that silence couldn't drown. "Success," he said, "isn't about what someone hands you or even what someone takes away. It's about what you're willing to protect and what you're willing to build again when the world thinks you're finished." A ripple moved through the crowd. Some nodded, others scribbled notes. His daughter stood taller beside him, her smile small but fierce. He outlined his new venture, not in lofty promises but in clear steps. The partnerships, the technology, the vision for something cleaner, better. When he finished, the applause came fast and strong, echoing off the high ceilings. From the back of the room, Sarah lowered her camera. She didn't need another picture. The story had already written itself. And just a few blocks away, in a cramped apartment with peeling paint, Claire scrolled through the newsfeed on her phone. The headline glared back at her. "From ruins to renewal, Marcus Hayes returns." Her coffee had gone cold. Her hand shook as she set the cup down, staring at the photo of Marcus and his daughter standing at the podium, bathed in light. The river house no longer looked abandoned. Fresh paint covered the walls, the shutters hung straight, and a warm glow poured from the windows onto the quiet street. Inside, Marcus sat on the porch steps with his daughter, a blanket wrapped around both of them. The night air was cool, but the warmth between them was steady. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Do you think people will stop laughing at us now?" Marcus smiled faintly, watching the soft ripple of the water beyond the yard. "Maybe, but that's not what matters. What matters is we never stopped believing in ourselves." She nodded, her small hand tucked into his, and for the first time in months, he felt peace settle into his chest. Across town, Claire sat alone in her rented apartment, the glow of her phone screen reflecting off tired eyes. The coffee table was cluttered with unopened bills, the silence pressing in around her. She scrolled past article after article about Marcus's return, his new firm, his vision, the applause that had followed his speech. The smile she once used to humiliate him was gone, replaced by a stillness she couldn't escape. She set the phone down, staring out the window at the city skyline. For the first time, she realised the game had never been about what she could take. It had always been about what Marcus chose to protect. Back at the river house, Marcus rose, pulling his daughter to her feet. Together, they stepped inside, the door closing softly behind them. The house groaned in its old bones, but it was alive again. Not because of the walls or the paint, but because of the promise that lived within it. Marcus glanced at the desk where his patent folder now rested in a neat stack of new contracts. He let out a quiet breath, not of triumph, but of gratitude. The world thought Claire had won. The world thought Marcus was finished. But the truth was simple. She had taken almost everything, and still he had more than she could ever touch. And as his daughter's laughter echoed through the halls of their once-forgotten home, Marcus knew they hadn't just survived, they had rebuilt. True wealth isn't what someone can take from you. It's what you choose to protect and rebuild, even when the world thinks you've lost everything. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this story. I'm truly grateful for your time and support. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you again soon, right here on Rain Inside.